not exact. So we will not be here discussing this if things are normal in Nigeria. We know, even those who have extremely benefited today know that things are not normal. And in addressing it, as far as I'm concerned, I will not be as rigid as Dr. Bugaji. That look, for rhetorics, for political correctness, yes, you can say homegrown, but human beings are the same everywhere. Hunger is hunger, poverty is poverty. So a bad system is a bad system. Whatever does not give the appropriate opportunity or right to people will be resisted, no matter what you do to prevent it. He mentioned that he mentioned military rule, he mentioned political system. He failed to mention revolution. That look, if all other things fail, there could be people can revolt. So if you are conscious of all of this, and we know the consequences of things getting out of hand, it will interest us to see how best to govern ourselves to ensure that our people, and you said it in passing, that the primary responsibility of every government is the welfare and security of the people. When those two things can no longer be guaranteed, forget it. Okay. There can be a stable society. However, please let me conclude. I know I'm taking time. I have looked at, I've studied the issue of Nigeria, how we even came into existence as separate kingdoms, communities, and whatever. If we don't want to relapse into actually what led us into being colonized in the first instance, because some people want to overlook that. That was a weakness that led to our colonialism. It was a weakness. I don't want to go to that history. If you are strong enough, we would never have been colonized. So we were not strong enough, and that was what led to our own being dominated by others. And part of it is the tyranny of these individual dictators that you call rulers. If you go on believing that a man, a person, no matter how beautiful, no matter how good, who could have the capacity to go and run 20 million people all alone, without checks, we are joking. So, by that consideration alone, I am opposed to executive system of government. I believe a collective arrangement, which parliamentary system guarantees, is best for a nation like Nigeria, if indeed we are committed to advancing the interests of the large population and mass of our people. Thank you.
So this dialogue. I know one of the major problems afflicting our country is the failure of rational discourse. And I will highlight this. Just yesterday, two people called me. One, of course, from the South. He said, I heard that you're going to engage in this dialogue. But my presupposition is that the bill itself in the National Assembly is sponsored by somebody from Southwest, as a matter of fact, from the president's state. Now, don't you think that this is President Tinubu's attempt at that term, so that after he's completed his tenure in a presidential democracy, he can now transit to a prime minister? I said, well, I do not dispute this. I believe it's a valid observation. But I pray you come to this forum and raise these observations. It should be taken as some of the issues that can be resolved if we agree that moving or transit into a parliamentary democracy is better than us. It's better for us, sorry. And the only challenge is that someone is trying to use it in order to further his own personal agenda. I think we can resolve that by just a phrase, not even a proviso in the Constitution that we'll craft after this. And then I got another call from someone who said, Can't you see that this thing is led by Honorable Abdul Samad, who is from the Caliphate? They want us to go back to parliamentary democracy so that the North can always produce the prime minister. And that was the problem why we abandoned this system, this parliamentary system of government. I said, well, maybe it's a legitimate point, but I wish you can come to the forum and make this observation. I believe you will agree that that is the only problem, but that the parliamentary democracy is better for us. We can resolve it. So this informs us about how difficult it is in the context of our country to hold a rational discourse such as this. But let's delve into the issues she has raised. I hope I have some time.
No, you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I won't be able to say what I want to say in 2 minutes, but let me attempt. Yes, let me attempt to say that. You see, everything about societal progress boils down to leadership. And leadership is not a job. It is a responsibility. That is where we get it wrong. Responsibility to take accountability for yourself as a leader, and then to be able to hold those serving for you or with you accountable. It is about ensuring or insisting that everyone around you play according to the rules, which is fairness, and then holding accountable those that do not, which is justice. You see, the major problem with the presidential system of government that we practice now is not the fact that we borrowed it from the US. I can tell you that for free, that those who copied from the American Constitution didn't do a wonderful job. And I got to know this in my undergraduate days. Before I left the university, the thesis I worked on was the vertical and horizontal distribution of powers under the American and Nigerian Constitution, a comparative analysis. That was the topic. And I was supervised from someone who has PhD and an American, Professor Austin. Later, he was Dr. Austin then, when he supervised me. And he made available to me the founding documents, the arguments, the Federalist Papers, all of them at that age. I studied them and saw which part of the American Constitution we took and which one we abandoned. And the problem with the presidential system of government is buried in those differences or derogations that those who copied and created and carved the 1979 Constitution, which we are practicing with some amendment, made. So it is not the American system that we copied 100%. I'll give you 2 examples. In the US, for instance, well, impeachment of the executive is real. It can happen. Even judges can be impeached. And the provision is the House that carries out impeachment both of the executive and members of the judiciary, while the Senate tries them. And if they are convicted in the Senate, they are removed, and it is real. But in the Nigerian Constitution, Section 143 doesn't provide anything about impeachment. It just mentioned it. Let me make this point and then I'll close there. It just mentioned it because at the end of the day, everything the National Assembly has done, it will be handed over to a committee of 7, they call them people of impeccable character. I don't know where we can find assemble these angels in the context of Nigeria. And then their determination is final. It cannot even be queried by the National Assembly or any court in Nigeria. And then these 7 people of impeccable characters are appointed by the Chief Justice of the Federation, who himself is an appointee of the president. How do you make this thing real, this impeachment of a thing? So without this sanction, we don't have the Office of the Independent Counsel in Nigeria. Just all this issue of contradictory judgments coming from the court. In the US, it can be dealt with. But in Nigeria, no. Because the power to deal with judges rests in the NJC. So that is in breach of the laws or rules of natural justice, where the judiciary get to determine what should happen to members of their own profession that are found wanting. And I said this last, maybe to elicit some laughter. At the meeting of Body of Benches, after we were done, journalists were trying to interview me about what was happening in the judiciary. And I did say then that I'm a member of this profession. You can say I belong to this highest body. I shouldn't be seen to be litigating the issues I have openly. I will advise in-house. Then a senior brother of mine, a retired federal court judge, said, my younger brother in Hausa Kanina, that I'm impressed with your comment. You know why? I said, no. He said, because if your mother is a prostitute, you should be the last person to see it, or they must never hear it from your mouth. So the problem we have is lack of accountability, Any system that we will build that will not make the people in power fear the people, but the people instead will be afraid of those in power. It's an imperial democracy. It will never work. It will never produce any result.
So this system has inherent loopholes that will allow those who are administering it to go scot-free. And we need to tighten it. Another reason why we say so is the same Nigerian who takes pride in beating the traffic light, who takes pride in even the NEPA at home, you want to do a bypass. Send that same person to Ghana. I'm not talking about the United States. Send him to Ghana, and there is a queue somewhere. He will line up quietly because he knows that the system is not the same thing with what he has at home. So some people talk about mindset change. Yes, you might think about mindset change, but to me, the person sitting behind, the children behind, are the people that require the mindset change. Because we already know that what we are doing is wrong. And when we go to a clime where they have better and stronger systems, we behave ourselves. So what mind are you going to change? We need to change the system. We need to begin to provide stronger penalty for those who commit crimes. I remember once, either in the 8th or 7th Assembly, we proposed a bill for death penalty for public office holders that steal public funds. It did not see the light of day. I think that we should begin to take extreme measures that will discourage public office holders from doing the things that they do. And the current presidential system that we practice is one that allows a lot of leverage. There are so many things that are morally wrong, but legally they are right under our laws. And so it becomes difficult to hold anybody culpable, even where people criticize over such actions. And for us to move on, we must begin to look at our own peculiar attitude and couch laws that will take care of them. That is the homegrown. Homegrown is not that we look at our culture, tradition, and all that alone. No. What are Nigerians likely to do if you give them this opportunity? Let me use the expression. If you bring a public office holder in Europe and bring a Nigerian public office holder and ask them to exercise discretion on an issue, I'm sure that you will agree that the Nigerian public office holder will be looking at religion. He will be looking at tribe whilst taking that decision. But the public office holder outside here, religion, tribe, state, and all that might not matter. And so if we are bringing laws that has to do with exercise of discretion, we must consider these facts, that our people are likely to be swayed by these facts. And then such laws that apply outside here might not apply effectively in Nigeria. So for us, a homegrown system is one that will look at the problems we have, issues of corruption, issues of accountability, issues of transparency, issues of character in office, and couch the laws to take care of them. I don't believe in death penalty, but if death penalty will solve our problems, we'll go ahead and include death penalty for public office holders when you misbehave. We believe that it will deter our people. And for the group that has come up with this idea, we are throwing it open to Nigerians. We are calling on everybody, and that's why you have the younger ones here, that the time has come for us to sit up and begin to change our system, not just the mindset. if we have a system in place, Nigerians will change. And if you recall, the last administration, Buhari, when he came in, President Buhari came in, people were talking about body language or body movement. Everybody sat up, and we expected that things would begin to change. Until the administration went in for 6 months, they were still booting, yet to commence. Nigerians relaxed, things relapsed, and even got worse. So for every administration that comes, you look at the enforcement mechanism, you look at the body language and the character, and then people react in line with that. But we are praying that, look, in the interest of our country, we must look at our peculiar attitude of Nigerians and begin to bring administration, government, and laws that will suit our peculiar circumstance and condition. The current constitution we have will not help us. Amendment in bits might not also be the solution. There is need for a holistic change. And that change is to look at our condition, our circumstance, and commence with a homegrown system of government.
To stand before this august group of people who have gathered on an important issue today. I'm sure you'll appreciate that some of us who have been invited here perhaps should be in the museum by now, by virtue of the number of days and months and years that were spent on this planet. To be the chairman or co-chairman of this occasion is a great honor and a great privilege for me. Having been born a Nigerian, but a British Nigerian, in the sense that those of us who are born before 1914, or those of us who are born after 1914 up to 1960, would describe ourselves in various forms and terms. I, having been born 86 years ago, I was born a Nigerian British Nigerian. That's what I was. And I believe there are quite a few of us here who are British Nigerians. And after 1960, when Britain left us alone to manage our affairs, we were such. And for me, really, I've seen Nigeria as a British colony, administered by the British people. And they decided in 1914 to invite some of our elders to a meeting where some far-reaching decisions will be taken in terms of the future of the country. And by that, I mean the promulgation edict that was discussed in 1914 included 6 eminent Nigerians, or 6 eminent people, because at that time, before the meeting, they were not Nigerians. It was after the 1914 that we assumed a new name or a name referred to as Nigeria. If you read that edict, for those of you particularly with penchants for law, like Dogara Wood, see the content of that edict. It was an edict because it was a decision made by former British military officers who were governing us, in various ways in the country as a colony. And they couldn't have used any other term than an edict. And after that edict was approved in their meeting, this was then referred to the colonial office, and it was adopted that this new nation was then born. Nigeria was born by that declaration in the edict. So, for those who are curious like me, I read quite a bit of that edict, and it was an edict of hope that the Nigerians that were colonized from Lagos to southern parts up to the northern part in 1903 would now be regarded as a country, and that country would be named Nigeria. It is of interest to hear that maybe I'm wrong here, the historians are here. It was the governor and the wife of the governor, or I think the governor general, that in fact gave us our name, Nigeria. Now, the content of that edict was simply that the people that have been put together under that edict are called Nigeria, and the people within Nigerians will now move forward and over the years build a country that they could call their own, and others will also respect as a country different from theirs. And I think that the edict was very clear. In fact, it said the life of the edict was just 100 years. The edict would expire after 100 years. So technically and statistically, this edict expired in 2014, exactly 100 years after. But we did not do anything in a very special way to say that that edict no longer existed and so on, but it was there. But the content was very, very important. And if you read the content, you then consider why we're here today as very, very important. The elements in the edict were simply that the people who were conquered by the British from the southern part of Nigeria, Lagos and others, including the North, of course, are now agreed that they are going to build a country. And this country will be called Nigeria. And they should be working very hard to make sure that they succeed. And from time to time, they should create opportunities to assess the kind of progress that was being made towards that objective of building the country. And I took it that while they were doing that, particularly when we get back to the point when our first generation leaders in the country were working towards getting Britain out as a colonial master towards our independence. And they did extremely well, in my view. they work together, coming from different places and so on. Just as we are still from different places today, they were even more in different places at the time when they decided that they should get themselves together and see whether they can really produce a good country for all of us. And they did. No. So I think that if you look at what they did, one of the quotations that I always use, particularly when people are quarreling about themselves, where do you come from, what language do you speak, which place of worship do you attend, weekly or daily, as the case may be. The Sadhana came with the idea that we can't all melt into one tribe, we can't all melt into one language, we can't melt all in one faith, just because we want to be called Nigerians. No. So the important thing is for people from these different backgrounds and different antecedents and so on, is to continue to dialogue and understand their differences. Once they can understand their differences, they should be able to work together toward building a country. And this was the spirit behind their working together up to the point Nigeria had achieved independence. Not that Sadona seems to be a Fulani man, not that Chifawolo seems to be a Yoruba man, no Zik ceasing to be an Igbo man. But they work together because they try to understand their differences. And these differences will always be there forever, more or less. There is nothing you can do about it. It is not your work, it's the creation of Almighty. And in the various scriptures, I'm not good in all the scriptures, it said, we created you in different nations and so on.